the extent to which the Palestinians can adapt to climate change is heavily constrained by the situation of their occupation. The lack of access to the Palestinians to their water is as a result of the occupation is the most significant kind of impact on their kind of water situation. The Israelis basically control over 80% of the water from the West Bank aquifers, and the rest of the water they have a say in. Yeah, it means that the Palestinians are not able to create a water governance system. The occupation involves control of water supply in the same way that an occupation controls all other, many other aspects of everyday life, like employment opportunities, mobility, educational opportunities. The control of water is a aspect of the fundamental kind of control of land, control of territory, and the occupation of the Palestinian territory involves therefore the control of the resources within that territory. The easy kind of narrative about the Palestinians can't govern themselves, which is almost farcical to me in terms of the situation that they're in. The Israelis will say, well, we have the Oslo Accords, there's arrangements for water sharing, we give the Palestinians more water, or we will sell them water. The irony of the Palestinians being sold their own water, which is a sort of astonishing in its kind of a brazen kind of idea that we're doing them a favor by taking their water and selling it back to them. The settlements within the West Bank, East Jerusalem, they take 4 or 5 times the water of Palestinian villages and towns. One of the things that the Israelis do is when international organizations come in and want to invest in improving Palestinian water infrastructure, the Israelis insist, where relevant, that these water infrastructure projects are integrated into the settlement water infrastructure. This puts international organizations often in a big dilemma as well. We shouldn't be supporting settlements because they're illegal under international law, but if we don't, then this Palestinian village won't get its water. I mean, I've been in the West Bank where you see this really stark contrast between going past a Palestinian village where they're really struggling to get water, then you go very, very closely, come to a settlement and they have swimming pools. And it just looks so surreal. And I don't know how the settlers themselves can kind of exist in any sort of sense of comfort, knowing that there's that kind of astonishing inequality of access to water, where the Palestinians are often struggling to get enough drinking water. Water company Mekawat, which decides, water which goes where. I think they reduce the water available to Jerusalem and Ramallah to increase water to settlements in East Jerusalem, for example. So it's quite convenient for the international community and also for some NGOs to talk about, well, climate change, this is somewhere where, surely the Palestinians, Israelis can come together and agree on a shared project because they both kind of experience climate change. So why can't they come together to agree on climate change issues? Well, if you're under occupation, it's not really a discourse between equals. Occupation is not democratic. Israel is bound by, although ignores, a whole series of provisions of international humanitarian law about protecting the resources, the natural resources of the population under occupation, which obliges them actually to protect the water resources and to ensure that Palestinians have access to sufficient water resources, even as an occupier. Even as an occupier, there are certain obligations that you have to do, which they're not doing. By the end of the century, we're looking at a kind of perhaps 30, perhaps even 40% reduction in precipitation in Palestine in terms of water. And given that in the West Bank, that the agriculture is rain-fed dependent, most of it, 85% is rain-fed dependent, then that's potentially a major stress on agricultural systems which depend on rainfall. And people are they are forced into a situation where they're having to use local solutions like small reverse osmosis equipment to clean water to drink and to wash with and so forth. How can you create sustainable solutions to water management if you don't have access to your water? How can you create sustainable solutions to a sort of agriculture if you're unable to sell your products in the next town? How are you able to scale up into a kind of climate smart, low carbon economy if your young people are unable to leave Gaza or the West Bank, to get educated somewhere else? You've got to kind of give credit to Palestinians just for existing, just for surviving. It's a survival culture at the moment. It's a survival culture in Gaza. It's a survival culture in the West Bank. And to expect anybody in a survival culture to have to do more is almost the wrong question.